Welcome, Greek U Nations, episode number 651 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our 9th book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, traveling around the world has been one of my favorite activities. I believe that learning about new people and new cultures, putting yourself into the shoes of another person can be really a wonderful part of your growth journey and a way that you can build more empathy into your life. Speaking of a growth journey, let's talk to our next guest. Taj Simrit is a modern Renaissance man whose journey has been defined by seeking wisdom through experience and transforming hardship into humility. Guided by the belief that true healing begins within, his work reflects themes of self-discovery, peace, and forgiveness. His debut book, it's called Behold My Soul, shares timeless lessons on healing and transforming that resonate across cultures and generations. Beyond the page, Taj is a globetrotter, a travel writer, a public speaker, a great facilitator for retreats, and a consultant known for creating transformative experiences that encourage inner growth and meaningful human connection. Welcome to the show, Taj.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm just very excited to be talking to you.
Well,
I like your style. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm happy that you like my style. That's a wonderful thing. Now, let's talk about your early life. I know you described your early life as purposeless and compassionless. What did that actually look like every single day?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't look too bad, really, because although I had a lot of issues in my youth, some typical trauma from growing up with a kind of an abusive kind of environment, I always had, and I was an atheist, I was very stubborn, and I had a Cartesian mind, black or white, there was nothing in between. However, where I found my salvation from early on was with nature. And I've always been very perceptive. And I didn't know I was perceptive with people at that time. I was not so much interested in people, but I was very perceptive with nature. So that has always been my salvation. So when I say purposeless, doesn't mean I was not happy. And after that, throughout my career, I lived in America for 30 years, a typical corporate American life. I had, I'm a typical man. I had my own pleasures. I did a lot of martial arts. I played tennis. So I always found ways to please myself. I was run mainly by my ego, my mind and my ego. But I cannot say I was not a happy person. I've always been a happy person. I like to laugh. I like to have a good time. So that's what I meant when I say it's, as far as compassion, my heart was closed. When you have, that's a case of a lot of, probably students and a lot of teens I worked with in the past, as soon as you go through the little life trauma and you don't do anything to get rid of it, you don't even acknowledge that you have a problem. That's number one thing. You have to be saying, hey, I do have a problem, and then I'm going to fix it. But a lot of people are, especially people in that range of, 19, 20, all the way to 30 years old, they don't quite know. So as far as compassion, because my heart, I've been hurt before, so I don't want to be hurt again, so I closed my heart. So I had no compassion. I mean, everything, I was in sales for 25 years in America with a very competitive kind of sales, 100% commission, with a lot of ego and a lot of drama. So I was fitting right in. Okay. At the end, towards the end of my career, obviously, I started to sense that something was wrong. And then that's when the purpose from then on was to open my heart for my search. And as soon as I opened my heart, I started to feel compassion and empathy. And And that was it, pretty much, yeah.
Hmm. The other thing about you that was interesting is that you spent 8 years traveling by yourself, solo. So were you running away from some of that trauma that you talked about, or were you searching for something, or what was the whole point to
Yeah.
traveling solo?
I've had that a few times. I had that conversation with a lot of friends. I had that conversation with my sister. I mean, oh, you always keep moving. So my rationale in my mind was, number one, I have endless, boundless energy, and I love to discover. I'm very curious, and I love languages. I love cultures. I like people. So I just kept traveling. Now, I should tell you that before I settled down in America, I just backpack. I was accepted in college, and 1 month before I just left. I went to live in Spain for 1 year. So I never made it to college, and I backpacked for the next 15 to 17 years. I backpacked on and off for about 13 years. So you could say I have 20 years of backpacking experience. I've not been everywhere, but I've been to a lot of them. And backpacking in those days meant you could work, so different kind of traveling. Your students right now, the people that you deal with, they go to Koh Tao in Thailand to party, in a full moon party, and they spend a week and they blow all their money and they smoke their dope and they just drink and they party, they have all the girls. The traveling, I was doing drugs at that time when I was traveling. However, it was more like, I had to live, I have to make a living, I had to find work. So it was a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I was running away, to be honest with you. You're always running away for something. I was running away because my heart was not open. But now I still got 15 years of travel in front of me. I've already mapped out all my life. I know where I'm going to go. I've got another 50, 80 countries to go to. So I am not running anymore. I'm still searching. I'm a work in progress.
Mm.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. What was that rock bottom moment, the moment that you realized that something had to change? Was it when you ran out of money?
Wow, no, I ran out of money many times. I mean, if I told you all the places where I slept in my life, you would go, whoa.
Yeah.
I could say I got a full life. I mean, by the time I'm about to go to the other side or wherever I'm going, I'm just going to be smiling because I had a phenomenal life. I had a lot of experiences, some good and some bad. And that made me the person that I am today. As far as rock bottom, it's hard for me to answer that question because I had so many. I am not the kind of person that go, aha. To me, it's like I'm a slow person. I'm a slow learner. I'll tell you, they have a French saying, they say, il comprend vite, mais il faut lui expliquer longtemps. I mean, literally, he understands quickly, but you have to explain it to him many times and many times over. That was me. I would not learn a lesson the first time I got into trouble. I need repetition, and I think a lot of students are in the same predicament. That's a part of growing up. You need to make a mistake. You need to fall. You need to break something, and then you fix it. So, but I've done, to answer your question in a more precise way. I was already traveling about 3, 4 years ago. Some friends invited me to go to Peru to do some ceremonial ceremonies with ayahuasca. And I ended up staying 3 times. I ended up staying 6 months. So ayahuasca, by the way, is not a drug, in case you're wondering. It's a medicine. So I just went there, and that was really the moment for me, where I did some like what they call a diet, which is you take medicinal plant on the top of doing ceremonies at night with ayahuasca, with shamans, and that's a way to open your heart, really. So to me, that was the real moment when I realized that I need to, there's that light inside, I need to let it out, and I need to have a purpose that follows my purpose. I need to make a difference in people's lives somehow. So that's still my search. This is what we're talking about here right now.
Mm-hmm. You also talked about breaking through mental and emotional limitations as well. And you talked a little bit about ego earlier. I'm sure young in life, that was something that was a very big part. So what are some of those big ego traps that young people, young students can fall into?
Well, I mean, look where we live. I mean, I don't live in America anymore, but I lived 30 years in America. Not to point fingers, but I mean, it's a very competitive society. I mean, you grow up, if you grow up with a family with education and money, I mean, you're going to be even more into that. Or if you grow up poor, then you're going to be more like a victim. There's the two sides of the polarity. But however, what the ego traps young people fall in is to think that you are you. I am me. Me stands for mind and ego. I mean, there's nothing else around. Although I was in contact with nature, I was an atheist because I grew up as a Catholic boy. And by the time I did my confirmation, I was 12 years old. I realized it didn't make any sense to me. So from then on, I decided I'm going to be an atheist. The problem with that is I met a lot of atheists throughout my travel. Is when you start saying, well, it's only me, I mean, that's a big trap of ego. I mean, and I can see how the students are just so consumed by succeeding, by having a great education, by grades. The parents have been pressuring them, or maybe sports. They have a scholarship in football and they need to become pro. So there's so much pressure on these kids. So everything's about them. So at one point, you need to let out and go, there's something outside of you. You have to start reading books, self-improvement book. You read great authors that explain to you the universe. And then you realize, man, I'm just such a tiny little part of anything. I'm just so minuscule. So I don't know if I'm answering your question properly, but I think that would be a good trap. As far as myself, I was a typical person in that predicament, By the time I divorced my wife for 28 years, I was the biggest jerk you could ever think of. When I talked to my sister the other day told me on the phone, we're having a conversation. She said, when you were living back in the States, married, when you were so gloomy and you were so stubborn and and she was right. If you don't live from love, you live from mind. And I've always had a good mind. I've always had a inquisitive mind and also a negative mind, right? It makes sense because I grew up in a very negative environment. My dad was always judging and criticizing everybody. So I think that's one of the trap of young people. They are better than others, There's that superiority from the mind. I am better than them. I got better grades. I'm better looking. I got a nicer girlfriend. I got nicer clothes. The girls, the ladies, I got better this, I got better that. And my parents have money. I got a house. So that could be a real danger. And then at one point you realize that this doesn't feed you. You need to find something outside. And how do you find outside? By going inside of yourself. So you don't look for it outside, but you look at it in the whole world, Yeah, does it make sense or not?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of students who are listening right now, and they are leaders in their organization and a college campus. How can they lead other people, other students, without being driven by ego?
Well, they're always going to be driven by ego. Everybody has a big ego. We have to realize a big ego is not your amigo. That's what my yoga teacher used to say. Your ego is not your amigo. It's not here to help. Your ego is looking for drama. It's looking for problem. It's looking for division. It's looking to point finger. It's looking for blame. It's looking for excuses. So I think a good leader is somebody that doesn't make excuses and takes responsibility for his own mistakes. But I think your students are in a position of leadership. They have to lead from the heart. Okay, but if a heart is closed like mine was, well, great. Just do some work. Just be aware that you have a closed heart and start reading books and start traveling. Traveling will open your heart. Traveling will open your eyes. Traveling, makes sense. Traveling will open your mind. But if you don't have that chance, the kids do travel nowadays. So at least that's a good thing. Everywhere I go, I see students. Most of the time they do partying, but I don't really blame them because I was doing the same thing when I was their age, right?
Right. Exactly.
But you gotta let it go. You gotta shake it out. You gotta do your partying, and then after that you become a wiser person, like yourself or myself. It takes time. That's a growth. That's a it's a curve. I mean, it's a slope. You have to climb one step at a time.
Hmm. So for a lot of the college students that are listening, I know that they have friendships, and sometimes those friendships will break. Sometimes trust gets damaged between some them and some of the other people they know. People make mistakes in life, as you know. You and I have, I'm sure, have made many mistakes. So how should these young students approach repairing relationships in their life that are broken?
Well, I would tell you what, the one a big haha moment that came out at the same time when I went to Peru. Just before I did I already done some ayahuasca in Mexico a couple of years before, but before I started what they call a diet, like a 4 week diet where you're by yourself in a cabin, you eat like beautiful food, like no meat, no salt, no oil, you basically don't talk to anybody all day, and then at night you do a 3 4 hour ceremony, and then you back to your heart by yourself. The day before I started, my good friend gave me a great book by Joe Vitale. You know Joe Vitale about zero limit, about that came out in 1981 about Ho'oponopono. For the students that are listening, if you don't know about Ho'oponopono, it's a traditional Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. And I would tell you, students, right now, just by my life, I'm not an expert, but I just embodied my Ho'oponopono spirit because since that day, it was 4 years ago, I just breathe Ho'oponopono every day. So, the four magic sentences: I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. Well, I tell you, if every one of your students start practicing that, maybe they read a book, okay? Maybe they talk to somebody like me that has done it, that kind of knows the nuances of it, because there's a lot of nuances, okay? When you say, I'm sorry, you take responsibility, Michael. You take responsibility 100% for your life. Not only for your life, but the life of the people around you, because you are the one that attracted them in the first place. So you gotta kind of understand that these people don't come by coincidence. It's a master plan, everything is a master plan in the universe, regardless of what your beliefs are. So once you say I'm responsible, to me it was a haha moment. Instead of pointing fingers, it's not my fault, it is his fault, this is da. No. You are responsible for your own life. You are the creator of your own destiny. I believe that 100%. You can manifest anything you want in your life. And after that, you say, forgive me. Now you ask for forgiveness. But you're not putting your knees down on the marble and say, forgive me, please, I'm guilty. No. You just ask the divine power, whoever it is, that love, that encompassing essence in the universe, to help you forgive yourself. Not only that, but you forgive the people that hurt you, most important thing. And you forgive yourself for the people that you harmed. One Yogi Bhajan, one guru in India said that if you forgive your parents, and I hope your students are listening to that, because that's the main thing when you are 19, 20, 21, 22, you have not forgiven your parents. Doesn't matter if they're the best parents in the world, you still have to forgive something. But my parents were not the best parents, but that's the one I had, so I have to forgive them. If you forgive your parents, you could get rid of 50% of the problem, of the troubles in your life, okay? I believe that wholeheartedly. 50% of everything just gets started brand new just from forgiveness. But when you ask for forgiveness, you ask for help, okay? That makes sense, to forgive yourself. And after that, I thank you, gratitude. That was my main problem. I grew up in France. Everybody here has been to France. People are not grateful. They think like they own everything. They think they're smarter. They think, no, you got to realize that everything you have in life, the students, that doesn't matter if they come from a rich family or poor family with a scholarship, you have to wake up in the morning. These are my affirmation. When I wake up, I'm grateful to be alive. Well, I've been traveling. I've seen people poor. I've seen people starving. I've seen people in wars, attacked. I've seen relationship women being mistreated. So when you realize that it's all about feeling grateful, and gratitude obviously comes from the heart. After that, And I love you opens up, the heart opens up, you know. So I would think that Ho'oponopono, I mean, I could give you some more in the future if we stay in contact. I could give you some more tips and send you books and how to introduce that to your students. I mean, if you master that and you say, I'm responsible, I broke up with my girlfriend because I was a jerk. But when you ask for forgiveness, this is a nuance here, Michael. You're not saying, you know, I'm so bad, I'm such a bad person, please forgive me. No, because in Ho'oponopono, they believe that everything in life, you come with programs, like like a computer software. You come with, it's already set up in you, it's already in you. So memories, program, vibration, it's so you need to clear, constantly clearing. I have a song about these 4 sentences by a Spanish artist. I play in a loop throughout the night. So at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I hear, I love you, or please forgive me. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. So I could talk for like 1,000 hours. I know we don't have the time, but Ho'oponopono because it's a lifesaver. I tell you what, the Dalai Lama said that if people in school, like elementary school, started to do meditation, we could stop war within 2 generations. I would tell you that if we could start implementing Ho'oponopono around the world, we could stop the war within our generation. This is how powerful it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really good stuff. And you're talking about forgiveness, which is a really important concept, I think, for our listeners to understand. And sometimes it's hard to forgive. So, what happens psychologically and physically when somebody carries all of that resentment for somebody else for many years?
That's a question of the day, doctor. I mean, then you do like a guy like me, you're 56 years old and you got a closed heart and you live with a wife that you used to love and you used to have a good time, and all of a sudden there's no more love, there's no more compassion, you don't laugh anymore, you don't have sex anymore, you don't communicate anymore. It's because you carry all this resentment and you let them, how do you say that, percolate, you let them stay inside, and they just, like meat. The more you eat, if you don't imagine that, well, I'm not against meat, but let's say that you don't have a way to let it out somehow, it will petrify inside of you and it will rot. So that's the same. These resentments are that. And throughout my years traveling, I love to have this conversation with people, regardless of the crime. Because I've seen a lot of people traveling that had problems, especially in the spiritual sphere. Most of the people that tend to be looking for something spiritually, or somebody like me looking to travel and keep moving, is because they had problem in the past. So unless you acknowledge that you have problem and you start doing something about them, you're going to carry this resentment and this hurt and this pain 24/7. So if you don't forgive somebody, it doesn't matter if a person raped you or killed your brother or killed somebody, it doesn't matter how big the crime is. I got to the point where I believe it's 100%. Because if you don't forgive a person, even if a person is not saying that they're sorry, it doesn't matter. Once you release that emotional weight out of your shoulders, out of your heart, you're not a victim anymore. And then you can move on. So forgiveness is not giving the other cheek, okay? We're not talking about the people in our society tend to think, if I forgive a person, it doesn't deserve it. No, it doesn't matter. You don't need to deserve to be forgiven in order for me to forgive you. Because once I forgive you, it means I'm getting freedom from all that trauma that's eating me up inside. So it took me years to work on that. So,
yeah. You talked a little bit about spirituality, and many of the students listening, they were born with maybe a certain religion and things like that, but maybe they also want to explore their spiritual side. So, how can they explore that spirituality without feeling like they are abandoning all of their existing beliefs?
Wow. You don't replace spirituality. Becoming spiritual is not, I've seen it happen. We'll talk about it later. Becoming spiritual is not saying one day, okay, I used to believe in that. No, I don't believe in it. It's not. It doesn't work like this. It's just more gradual. It's more like a nuance. You don't give away your beliefs. I don't talk about religion. When I talk about God, it could be any God. It could be Buddha. It could be Muhammad. It could be Jesus Christ. To me, I talk about a supreme intelligence that governs everything. Okay? Albert Einstein has a saying that says, there's two ways to live your life, Mike. You could live your life like everything is a miracle, or you could live your life like nothing is a miracle. So regardless of your belief, myself, I always believed that everything was a miracle, although I had no beliefs. Other people have strong belief from their family environment, religion, or what have you. So becoming spiritual doesn't mean you're going to give and throw everything away. You go to your mom and say, I don't believe in that God anymore. I started. No, you gradually, you start reading books, self-improvement book. You go and do yoga. My big ha-ha moment was yoga when I started doing yoga seriously. And when I started breathing for the first time in my life, Mike, I had never breathed consciously. Most of us don't. But the reason why my martial art teacher used to say that's the reason why people smoke. People don't smoke because they're addicted to nicotine. They can get rid of nicotine in 3 days. They smoke because they feel alive. They pop in and they throw the smoke and they see that they are alive. That's what he used to say. So that makes sense. But the same, yeah. So I lost my train of thought, but I don't know what we were talking about. I talked too much, maybe.
No, we're talking about spirituality, but that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. The other question I wanted to ask you was about men struggling, specifically for men. Why do they struggle to admit that they're hurting inside?
I mean, come on, you're 19 years old, you're full of testosterone, and you got the hormone raging, and that's all you think about girls. We live in a society that, the poor kids right now. When I grew up, there was no internet, Mike. Imagine that, traveling around the world for 10, 15 years with no internet. Guess what? We made the most beautiful connection. You meet somebody somewhere and you tell them, okay, meet you someplace 4 miles down the road. You had no idea. And somehow, boom, you're connected. Now it's all about social media. Now everybody's in touch with everybody else, but there's less connection. In my book, there's less connection. So to go back to that question of yours,
yeah,
what was the question?
So why do so many men struggle to admit? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they're 19 years old and they live in a society where you cannot be wrong. It's a macho thing. And plus, we are men. I mean, let's be honest, there's still a lot of sexism in the world, right? Your lady students know that. I mean, so in the corporate world, there's even more sexism and the rich people and also. So you got to be careful with that because, I'm hurting. Yeah, I don't want to say I'm hurting to people around my peers because there's peer pressure here. Pretty soon they call you a wimp. Yeah, pretty soon they call you want to show that you're strong, that you can fight. So it's the macho. And now you go back into fight and flight, survival mode. Like we go back to like we used to live in the caves, we're fighters. And I was in the same predicament myself. I always thought about me against them, So I think Ho'oponopono, to go back to that, will go back to the core principle that will make you realize that it's okay to tell people I'm hurting, and it's okay to talk to men or women and tell them up front what's going on. And people will appreciate you more for the fact that you are being authentic and that you're different from the other guy. And,
yeah,
that's a long work. That's a long process, obviously.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to a 19-year-old college student who says to you, I don't know what my purpose is in life? What would you tell them?
I would say, great. That's phenomenal that you don't have a purpose, because I have never had a purpose. I'm 68 years of age. I'm starting slowly to discover my purpose. Purpose is not something that some people I admire. I'll tell you who I admire. I admire people that do something for a living that they enjoy. Like yourself, you're enjoying. I could look at your face. I know you're enjoying what you do. You're making good for people. People that are musicians, writers, artists. Me, I wrote my book. That's my first book. It took me 2.5 years of That was my self-therapy to write a book. But you know what? I wrote this book, and 3 months later, I'm traveling around my motorbike around India. I've been doing for 2 years, and I'm just feeling empty. I'm going, you know what? I'm going to write another book now. So now I am in a little village in Greece. I've been here for the last 3 months. I'm not writing one book. I'm writing a trilogy of novels, 3 books. And for the next 10 months, I'm going to stay here, finally put some roots. A lot of friends have been telling me, Taj, you need to put some roots at one point, otherwise a tree is going to fall down. You know, put some roots, and I'm going to write a trilogy because I found my purpose. Maybe that's my purpose. Talking to you is part of my purpose. You are my second podcast in my life. I'm 68 years of age. So let the kid relax. I don't need to have a purpose when I'm 19. I just need to go with the flow. Let it come and enjoy the process. Another thing that the kids, maybe they don't do that very well. You have to enjoy the day, enjoy the moment. Tomorrow you might not be here. When you are my age and you've seen a lot of people go and you've seen a lot of drama happen, you have to be in touch with your mortality. And spirituality will teach you that. You know, I'm always in touch with my mortality. I know I could die anytime. And it doesn't matter because I'm not afraid of death. Maybe I used to, but not so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you, if they want to go and buy your book, the first book is called Behold My Soul, a true story about forgiveness and the power of love. Where should they go in order to connect with you and get the book?
Well, I'll tell you what, I covered my bases. I wrote my book in English, which is not my mother tongue, because I was born and raised in France for 20 years. But I also speak Spanish fluently because I live in Spain. I travel all around South America and Central America. So I wrote my book in English, and then I had it translated professionally in French and in Spanish. And my book is on Amazon in about 25 or 30 countries. So it's very easy to find. And I would tell you one thing. At the beginning, when I wrote that book, because I have a lot of contacts from around the world, people that I met, I thought it would be much easier. I send you a link to my book, and Mike, you're going to read my book and refer your friend and put on social media. Guess what? Doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. That was the biggest disappointment. You know what I'm talking about. You heard that before. People don't care about your problem. They care about their own problem. So recently, I put some marketing on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I told people, listen, my book is $9.99 on Kindle. If you buy my book, I'll tell you what I do for you. Time is not the essence. I will give you 1 hour on Zoom at your convenience. I don't care if it's now or 5 years down the road, and we could talk about you. We could talk about the book, talk about forgiveness. So it could be worth $100 and say, I'm a consultant, I charge you $100. So I'll give you for free. So tell your students, they buy my book. As long as they read the book, don't call me and I will ask a couple of questions. If you have not read my book, well, I don't want to talk to you, right? On the top of that, guess what? I'm writing a trilogy. Now I think it's going to be a masterpiece because now I've got, this guy was I think it's a pretty good book. It's well written, but who am I to say? I sold 250 copies of my book right now. Guess what? I want to sell 1 million copies. So how do I do that? Well, I do marketing. I'll talk to people like you. So I will give them, if I buy this book right now, I will spend 1 hour with them on the phone. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where. And I will send a Kindle copy of my next book coming out in 2027. And that trilogy is going to be phenomenal because I tell you what, I finally learned how to manifest that creativity spirit coming right through me. Because, when you write a book about yourself, it's kind of like pulling your teeth, right? Because you write about your own trauma. But now I'm just into... My sister told me, why don't you write a novel? You got a great imagination. So she gave me the idea. So I was traveling in India with my bike, and 3 months later, I'm feeling so empty. I want to continue that creative process, and that's what I'm here. And that's why I'm talking to you about this book, and hopefully I will do more marketing for my next few books. And I always manifested my book is going to be put onto a movie also down the road.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow. All
Doesn't
right.
matter.
Well, what a great interview, Taj. You are amazing, a modern Renaissance man for sure. The book is called Behold My Soul, a true story about forgiveness and the power of love. Go to Amazon and go and buy that book today. And Taj, continued success. All right.
Thank you very much. And I will make that offer to all the students that you and now and in the future. Okay, just 1 hour free consultation, and I tell you what, we could have a lot of good time by doing so. Yeah, I really much enjoy talking to you, although I did most of the talking, but I have no choice. I get carried away. I got so much. I don't know. Maybe I'll tell you what happened. I'm writing a trilogy right now. I'm writing about, you're a writer, right? So you know what I'm talking about. It all comes to discipline.
Yeah.
I finally realized that creativity doesn't come from sitting on your butt and dreaming in your head. You have to be disciplined. You have to install some good habits. That's a good lesson for your kids. So every day I write for 3 or 4 hours, 1,200 words.
Yeah.
I give myself 1 week off during a month. And I tell you what, once you start doing this, it's amazing how the creativity come on down. It's so smooth. But today I started thinking, you know what? After talking to Navin on the guiding voice, I realized that my next book is going to be a spiritual book with a lot of answers, tips and techniques about life. Not so much a memoir. Yeah. So that came in my mind today. That's the first time that happened today. I just go, wow. So I got a plan for the future.
I love it. We can't wait for the next book to come out. So thank you so much for sharing all this great information with us. We really appreciate it. And to our listeners as well, if you enjoyed this conversation with Taj, if you learned something today, share this episode with your friends in college and send it in a group chat, share it on social media. You really never know who needs to hear Taj's message today. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you.